Alright, welcome to this video, and I guess let me just start off with the context if for whatever reason you don't know what's going on. This is going to be uploaded to YouTube, so that's a pretty good reason to not know what's going on. So basically, a week ago for my teacher, and yesterday for you, the viewer, if you watched the video, I made a visual novel for a school project, and I went over and talked about it. And now project two is basically advancing on that a little bit, and that's kind of what this is. So I haven't really done anything with the like a script or structure in that way, but I kind of decided to go uh, a few bigger things and some more conceptual things as well. So I think what I'll do is actually start off because you can see there's some differences here if you're in the know. There's a little bit of a big difference right here. So I think I'll start with the script and kind of talk about what I want to talk about, and then yeah, let's just see how that goes. So I'll start a bit smaller. So GUI, there's one thing as well. Actually, yeah, one thing that I did that I wanted to talk about, like one thing I did last time that I wanted to talk about, and one thing that I just didn't do last time but still want to talk about because it's kind of a smaller thing. So I'll just start here. This is the GUI RPY file or Ren'Py file, and it is one of four main ones that this comes with. Uh, so script is basically just like a starting script. It's basically kind of just as a mini tutorial can get, and as you can see, it's pretty much empty in this because I assume you can change it, but this is where any visual novel starts. So what I do is just jump to where I want it to actually start in my own files, which are in the scripts folder. So that's a pretty simple one. Then there is screens. And the way basically everything in Ren'Py is a screen, even the game itself, which that's a it's a whole rabbit hole, but I can kind of if I can get to the top here, I can kind of show you how this all works. So here are kind of just so you use style keyword and then the name of the variable and then how it looks. So here it's text properties, GUI language. These are kind of like built-in can see it's since it's GUI dot, it's built-in Ren'Py stuff, so it's kind of the defaults. And I didn't mess with the styles so much. I did mess here, but in a different way, because I can see bar, which is kind of I think that's the scroll bar. Oh no, this is the scroll bar. I think this is just like basically vertical. Actually, you know what? I'm saying what it could be. Why am I not just looking in here. So if I go, this is GUI folder bar left. So yeah, it's just a purple bar, and since you can pick the theme of a Ren'Py project, that would be red, green, whatever, depending on the theme that you picked. And then vertical is obviously just vertical version. We'll still look at that though, just to make sure. That's what left. And top. Yeah, it's basically opposite side, different color as well. Then there's the scroll bar for scrolling, sliders, and just a frame as well. So just look at the frame. That's this is for when you I'll show you actually. Show don't tell. This is for I it's this menu. And then obviously like once again the color would be different. So I didn't change these. It's just stuff that I wanted to talk about because it's good to know. I was learning more about the screens. So this is for when uh, this is the dialogue box basically, and it takes who and what. So who is uh, if I not there, I don't have everything open, so that's why it's a bit grubby. But yeah, so who is who's talking? So thinking is just the name of one. It's a little bit arbitrary because of my original plan for this, but thinking, so that's the who, and then the actual text itself is the what, of course. And then I go in here, or I go back to screens. So that's the two parameters it takes, and obviously, like the actual dialog box is handled itself, or handled automatically. It's basically as soon as you have a what, or or as soon as you have that text showing up, that's how it does. And then here you can see there's a little bit of logic where if who is not none, so if there is somebody talking, then there will be a name box. And then there's a side image, which is once again a whole different rabbit hole, but think of it as you know uh, just looking on my shelf here. Say Mario's talking, and you have so you can have a little image of Mario on the side, and it can be a full size image, and it'll kind of just resize it in pretty fair. And then basically what this does make it available for styling through the character object, which is basically don't have to style characters in here. You can do how I showed last time, or I also refactored this a little bit, so I have all my variables in one file. Forgot to mention that, but that kind of made it more easier to handle, I guess. And these are all persistent for achievement stuff, which I'll get into in a moment. But yeah, uh, it basically lets you style the characters here, and that is why we have this what before, because you're specifying the text, you're specifying that variable. That is why it's what underscore. It's not arbitrary. And then window, which is the actual. This is like for the text of the text box. This is the text box itself. So you can restyle that. I did restyle the, I don't know if you saw, but I restyled the choice menu and the main menus. And then here's the input screen. I do use this once, but it's kind of the same concept except for it takes the actual input for the user. And then here is the choice screen. So it takes items, which would obviously be a list, uh, and a list of text. Choice VBox is VBox, so more styles for this. That like this entire thing is the screen, and then here are the styles for the screen, and then quick menu, which if I show again, click start. This down here is the quick menu. Press reload or quick save. This is short. What I'll do is just this, and you can add things to this list, and I'll show that I didn't add them to this specific list, but I did add stuff to the main menu. This is a navigation menu, which is the main menu. No, not the main menu. It's this menu here, this hidden menu, I guess. It's kind of weird because the way it works, this menu is basically a mix of the main menu and the and it's extra like history here because how I did it, I just added this button to the main menu and it automatically added here. So I believe what this does is it just here you can see there's this if statement. If main menu, it'll have the start button, else it'll have history, save, load preferences. And that's why here I have achievements, which is outside of the if statements. So it adds all of them. And it shows the menu from the achievements, which, like I said, I'll get to, but this is basically how you add a button. And this underscore is not required, but it basically looks for if it's underscored, it can be translated, and that's not something I was worried about. Like I didn't put an underscore there because I'm gonna be translating this. I put an underscore there to make it consistent with the other ones. And then main menu, not really anything else interesting. Just wanted to show it. I'm just scrolling down. Yeah, more styles. The about screen. I did change the about screen. Originally, it's basically just all of this up to here, where it's the made with Ren'Py version. And then I added that was made by me and a link to my GitHub. I added who the music was by, and then I also credited the person who did the achievements because their kind of stipulation was, hey, you can use my achievements on anything, paid or not, but you can't sell them on their own, sell them as modified, or use them at all without attribution. Obviously, even if I was using them and for whatever reason, they said they didn't mention attribution, I would still put it there. I would only leave it out if they, for some reason, specifically said leave it out. And then load save screen, uh, built-in save system. There's a lot here. See, there's more screen. There's the preferences. There's more styles. There's the history, which is its own can of worms. Help. Help is a weird one, I guess, because it doesn't show up on mobile, which is a purposeful choice. But it is, I guess you could argue that um, on mobile, everything should be clear because you're just tapping, but still, I feel like it could have just been another option where it's just like tap the buttons that you want, but still splitting hairs at this point. Confirm screen. Like, that's a are you sure you want to quit? Skip, that's yeah, even the skip indicator, it's its own screen. And that's basically uh, when you're skipping through text in the top left, it'll show the word skipping if it goes for a while. So yeah, basically everything is its own screen. So if for some reason you wanted to have skip be humongous, then yeah. There's also a speech bubble system, which is built-in speech bubbles. So that's what this is for. Think of it as another kind of text box type thing. So maybe if you want two characters talking at the same time, you could have one in the text box, one in the little kind of cartoon speech bubble. And yeah, so basically kind of showing you that you can probably understand that there's two ways to change GUI elements. Like not changing the look of the menus themselves, but changing the assets that they use. You could either change the name of the file. So if I wanted the GUI phone slider horizontal prefix bar, I know that's a mouthful, but if I wanted that to be different, I could either have my own image somewhere in the images folder probably and change this or just rename an image to this exact thing and put it in here. And I did that for the images, but not for something else, which I will get to. Yeah, this is a surprisingly lot to talk about. I didn't realize I didn't have so much, but yeah. So if I go in GUI, where was it? Button? Yes, I changed these. So here, this is for when it's normal, just idle, and then this is for when you're hovering over it. And I'll show the choice screen again. So here, see, they look more like the menu screen or the are you sure you want to quit screen it and then hover over it and see that's how it works. And then they just decided to do it that way because it's still, if I had my own image and I put in like, say I want to make this, renaming it in the screens would be no problem, but it would be a bit less clear where I'm using it. So just replacing the old assets is makes it clear what everything's being used for. You can see, you're playing it and you see, oh, that's different from the default. Then you can look in the button folder and just see what the image is instead of it being, in some weird obscure place. Well, images folder is in a weird obscure place, but it is for GUI stuff. And then if I had it in the GUI folder, it would have to be named something different from this or from the default if I wanted to keep the default. And then the other thing I changed was the menu screens. So once again, if I go to here, oh, nope, not quit. I meant to go to title. But yeah, so the background is, I basically took the background image and then dimly lit it because the main menu normally is kind of like this faded purple color, so I kind of wanted the best of both worlds there. So that's why this is dimly lit, and it's just its own image. There's no lighting system. So that's just yeah, that's just main menu.png in here. So this is obviously 16 by 9, 920 by 1080 or whatever your project requirements is. And then I think the buttons are like 1075 by 75. I think that's what it is, pixels and pixels. Either way, you can make them bigger than the originals, I believe, but that's obviously going to cause some issues. But say, for example, I want these to be bigger than the originals, and the screen, I can edit the spacing between them to make it so they don't overlap. So yeah, that's the GUI stuff. But there is one other thing, but that's actually in a different file, so that's fine. So that's script, that's screens, GUI is next, which that yeah, the main menu isn't here because main menu is just background image. Trying to see where it would be. So there's button borders. So that's each side. You can have a separate font for the button, and that's kind of gonna go over. I changed the font. There's three big ones in here, and the default is all the same as well, so that's kind of what I went with. I went with my favorite font, MSP Gothic Regular. Shout out to that font. And this is kind of how you do that. It's just string, just basically just setting a variable that is the path of this. And like the default font isn't in the game folder, and the game folder is where you're going to be working. So that's why I have this fonts folder and this in here. And that's also why that's part of the reason why I didn't just like rename a font and then replace the old one. And then obviously the other reason is kind of just uh, then the font name would be lying basically. And then here you can see set the size of normal text, character names. Basically, this is there's an options RPY which I'll get to, but think of this as GUI options basically. So here it's just a bunch of different defines. Uh, so basically any variable that screens uses is going to be defined in here, kind of like how I made it so that all my variables were in their own file, and that's kind of why this is a much shorter one. And then options finally. And here is going to be where one of the things I was talking about, where I did it last time, but I forgot to mention it. And that is, uh, do, 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 I can't remember where line it was. We'll get to the build stuff in a second. It wasn't even in here. It must have been in GUI. I can't remember what it's called. Oh, I remember now. Let me control F. It's not in here either. Screens? I feel like I've gone mad. Either way, if I can't find it, that's no big deal. It's definitely in one of these, and the reason why it's not control Fing is because it's probably one word. But basically, characters per second, or not, it's CPS, but it's not per second, or it doesn't measure in seconds for the variable. Basically, I think I set it to 55 actually, and there's only two 55s in here, but it's not in this one. Sorry if this is taking like forever, but okay, I can't find it, but basically characters per second, but it's not measured in seconds. It's basically it's so you get that typewriter effect when the text is printed out. It's defaultly 0, so the text prints instantly, which personally I think is absolutely horribly ugly. But I changed it to 55, so you kind of get this comfortable print out where it's not too fast, but it's not too slow either. And then back to here in options. So on to the next topic, I guess. Or I guess I'll mention the quick other small thing I didn't do, which I actually technically did now that I remember it. But inline stuff. This is kind of a lot like HTML with its inline tags. This makes it a link, but you can also do like a inline italics, bold, basically kind of any text transformation. You can even do really cool stuff where your text is like shaky and there's a little bit of an animation. Here I just have links. I just thought that was cool. Wanted to mention it. It was something that I almost did, but then I realized this character is always talking in italics, so that's kind of why I ended up doing. That's why I ended up doing it like with the what italic true because I never had to do. They were always talking in italics, so it didn't make sense to go in line. So yeah, so much. I genuinely did not realize it was going to be this much to talk about. I feel like I'm not even halfway through. But build classify. I'll try to make this part quick at least. So I added all of this. These are default. These no. Uh, Basically, it hides these files, so it will hide. Not sure what the tilde is actually, but I want to let you know, so I'm gonna pause. Okay, basically I searched it. That basically means it checks any directory. So that one's a bit of a wild card, I guess. But next, ignore all. Yeah, I just realized, yeah, I think of this as kind of like get ignore, except we can do a little bit more with it. So then get rid of all back files, all files in that directory, blah, 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 blah. And then what I added is basically, when you build a Ren'Py project, you it's basically the project version, but with an exe or a shell file, and then obviously with Android it's different. But for the computer stuff, it's basically the project version plus uh, some sort of executable to run it. And some people might not want that. For example, so you're working on a fan game where you have, assets that might not be, they're a big company and you don't want them to yell at you because, fan game, it's fair use. So what you could do is you could hide all those assets and it'll make it harder for them to, get after you. Also, it could just be, you have your own art in there, you don't want people stealing it, that sort of thing. And the way it works, basically, for all of these, for the RPY files, you can have that none, where they do not show up at all. They're just not in the build version because Ren'Py doesn't actually run off of them. It runs off the compiled version, RPYC. So, and those aren't plain text, those are like gobbledygook, unless you have compiler, which is the game, or the thing to run the compiled file, sorry. And, and so that's, you can, since those are technically never used, because when you build it, it builds the compiled files off of what the actual code files, and then you can just exclude the code files. Those can be completely ignored. But conversely, on that, oh, actually, no, I'll talk about that in a second. Then for everything else, basically, so you can see audio, images, fonts, those are archived because since Ren'Py uses them, you obviously can't have a game where you just don't include the images. That's not how it works. Uh, so what Ren'Py does, it has its own proprietary archive file system. So think of it as zip if WinRAR, or I guess 7-zip, was not common at all. Because there is still a way to unpack these archive files. I actually did do it once in the past. It's not that hard, but you have to jump through some hoops. You have to be basically looking for it to do that. And the casual player, and even somebody who wants to steal your assets, probably isn't gonna do that. So, yeah, it's basically proprietary uh, zip format, archive format, hence archive, and it's just not hard to crack at all. It's just to find the way to crack it is easiest thing around, which is pretty impressive since internet. And then last thing I was going to mention is that with those RPYC files, you wouldn't want to archive them because there's no point. I guess somebody you could reverse engineer them, just kind of like the zip files, but it would be harder. But you can't anyway. Even archived, RunPy basically just sees those specific files as not there, so you can't archive them. So that's why I don't. And then also, why would you? No, let me run back that sentence. My philosophy kind of, I hid everything for this just for the example, but and on the GitHub, which is public, I have the project version anyway, so people can still see it. But my kind of philosophy is, sure, maybe you want to hide your audio, your images, your fonts, but let people see your code. They could, maybe they'll say harsh things about it, but it might help you. And if it doesn't, well, clearly they don't know how to give good advice, and so you shouldn't listen to them. And it could help them as well. I guess this is a good segue to the achievements. I think I'm done talking about this anyway. So achievements, somebody else's code, and looking through it, I did have to, change it and stuff to make it work for what I wanted. But it was incredibly, it was like a really good experience just to like, it's just like Moby, uh, or I guess that one makes sense to YouTube, but basically for our Moby class, we had a bunch more assignments than probably enough assignments to stress you out like once a week, and they weren't small a lot of the time. But we got code instead of making them completely from scratch. We got like code, and then we built off of that to make what we were supposed to make, and that is what I. That's kind of same concept here. And then here you can see this is by Phoenix. I had mentioned how I give them attribution, and I did show it, but I feel like I should vocally speak it. And I'll put it in the link of the actual YouTube video of this. So Fenix, Fenix.itch.io or dev, I just linked their dev websites. I said either is fine. So time to go with this. So there's two files for this. Backend is setting everything up. So think about it how I mentioned uh, yeah, this file actually. How GUI was basically GUI options, how it was setting everything up. That's kind of like what this is the equivalent for achievements, and also as well, there's Steam backend stuff. So if you uh, made this as a Steam game, you could like if you posted it on Steam, you could do stuff with that to make it so achievements work, but that's not something I was really interested in, and I didn't have to mess with stuff here because you can actually do most of the styling in the actual achievements file itself. So I guess very commendable that the Phoenix code was very easy to work with. So uh, let me just start off from the top. So this is basically uh, this is to make it so the achievement pops up. Uh, you might not want that if you have Steam because then the Steam version achievement will pop up and your achievement will pop up and that would get annoying. And this here, I believe, is just a similar equivalent. I'm just reading the comments as well. Yeah, this appears on the achievement gallery screen, and this is kind of like a Steam. This only does it if Steam's detected. This is just in general if you don't want pop-ups. And then obviously hide time, that's pretty obvious what that does. This can have its own channel. Like I said, Ren'Py has 3 channels, but it's 3 built-in channels. You can make more. This isn't Game Boy where there's an actual hardware limitation to that. And then here is a callback. So this is for special types of achievements. So there's a few. There's linked achievement, which basically there's actually two that you have to do in here, rather. So there is linked achievement, which basically an achievement that you need to get all other achievements for. And then I forget what the other one's called, but they had an example of one each, but these actually appear in the game, so I had to remove the ones I wasn't using. And then there is one where it's basically it unlocks after unlocking 2 other achievements. And then here it's just more Steam stuff. Don't have to bother with that. Then image for a locked achievement. So this is kind of what I was talking about, how you can still style stuff in here. And I basically made my own images for these. In retrospect, I should probably put them in their own folder instead of like an images subfolder, I mean. But yeah, so I basically, the defaults were basically just the Ren'Py icon that appears in the top left when you're running the game, and then different colors of that. So I just made my own. No achieve is if I it's just like a question mark, 3 question marks. And then you can have it so specific achievements have specific images. But so this is just see, this is just defining an image. Uh that's for unlocked. But basically it just you do locked image equals and this is just the default. Anyway, so this is the kind of structure of achievement. Excuse me. Goodness. This -2 makes it so it appears atop all of them. This all achievements is just the name of it. This is the actual definition. Name obviously is the name of the achievement, and I'll actually, if I go, all show. So that's the name. Uh, yes, and then a description. then what the unlocked image is, which that one you're probably gonna always want to manually set 'cause it's gonna be different for all of them. And then description, what you can see, I specifically have a hidden description. So basically here, there's the description, and then when you click it, it actually gives you the proper one. And also, I just realized the clicking, this is only in dev mode, but in the actual game, you have to grant them, and I'll show that after I'm done explaining the file with the achievements. So that was kind of a bog standard one, quote unquote, or not bog standard, actually, that's far from it because it's the all achievements. But then here is a uh, numbered achievement, so so you have to get all of that. And quickly, I guess I'll just get this part of the way first. I have all of these as persistent so that basically even on a new save, uh, it's basically, the achievement is to check everything in your room, but obviously I didn't want it to check, this 12 times and get the achievement, so that's why these are persistent and false. So there's an if statement that basically doesn't increase it. And there's actually a built-in way to do this that I didn't realize right away. So that's why I have it as kind of clunky, but there's a way where it basically, the way it kind of works is uh, it's an array where when you grant, uh, actually, I might as well just go into the code and show what I mean. Didn't do it, but so it's basically this. So here I see I add the progress to the achievement, and basically there's another variable where you write, let's just say stick in here, and what it will do is we'll see it basically adds stick to a blacklist kind of equivalent where now if it goes here and it sees, oh, there's stick in there, we already have stick in the list, we're not going to increase the progress again. So I am glad that I understood that, but it is, it was a little uh too little too late because I already uh did it that way. And also these IDs are for I forgot to mention the IDs, but it's for this and it's just for Steam stuff in general. So the ID is not really a big deal if you're not doing Steam backend. And then this is just like an actual normal one, but uh this one you can see there's no or the hide description is different. So basically how this works compared to this, the hide, it has this, there's a string in there, so you can pick what the hide description is. So it's just triple question marks. And so if you have it as true instead of a string, it'll just use kind of like mystery one, so you can basically actually hiding it, but for this is actually hiding it, and then this is hiding it with different text, if that makes sense. And then the rest are just like that same format. And then here's the actual achievement screen, which is what I was, or no, this is the pop-up. So when you get one, and so it's this. I didn't do anything with that. I thought it looked very nice. And then this is kind of a similar. Oh, I might have got that wrong. Screen. The I think those are the same because that's what it's saying. But basically, they're both here. They pop out. Then here is the actual gallery screen, which I did change this a little bit, and I left most of the comments in just because they were very helpful. So I changed the color here because it was kind of this up here was red, and I didn't like that. I also changed the background, of course. I might not have done that in here. No, I did use it in here. And I think I might have, I can't remember. I think I changed the spacing a little bit as well. But this is all like, a scroll bar is something you can easily do in Ren'Py, and this is just images and text. So like seeing this and like looking at it was very cool. Kind of like obviously I looked at somebody and saw how they do achievements. I think it's kind of obvious to say that I feel like I could do achievements now. Or I guess it's not obvious, but I am, a programmer. That's kind of I look at something and see this is how it's done, I could do it. But I kind of the better way I mean to say is I feel like I could do something like this just from going through this experience, seeing how somebody else does it. So I'm just trying to think of an example. Let's say I wanted to add, basically I say I wanted to add another screen. Maybe I want characters to blink or something. I feel like I could actually do something like that now, with a little help, of course, but just from doing this, it was very helpful. And guess what? I'm not even done talking about achievements. I'm not even done with this in general. So quickly, I will show how they're granted. That's not end game is probably the best place to go. So here it's just literally just dot grant and you get it, and I showed the dot add progress as well. And then obviously for the all achievements you don't have to do anything in here. It's kind of just automatically done. And then finally I'll show it running on Android because goodness me, that was tough. It wasn't even hard, but it was tough, if that makes sense. Which it probably doesn't, but you see. So to put something on Android, it's a little bit more work than doing the just Mac, Windows, Linux. And the reason why is because you have to download a bunch of extra stuff. So first you have to install wrapped, which is Ren'Py Android packaging tool. That's easy. I actually already had it on here, which I was weird. I think it might come with it, but either way you can install it here. Um, yeah, that's easy. And then it asks next, it'll ask you to update your Java version if you don't have the proper Java version, and that's where the issues arose, and it wasn't even a run by problem. But basically, I had an Android version, or I had Java version 20. It wanted 21. I clicked the link you gave me. I downloaded Java version 21. You have to change the home variables, or the path environment path variables, and the SDK asked, "Hey, do you want me to do that for you?" And obviously I said yes. And it didn't do it properly, and I was going insane, wondering why my Java version was 1 instead of 21. I have messed with the path variables before, so I eventually did figure out the problem on my own, but still, that was not fun. And like I said, not even a RenPy problem, it was an SDK problem because if I just said no and did it myself, things would not be causing issues. But anyway, after that, uh, I I can't remember the order, but it's either actually no, I think it does ask you to download the like Android versions or like just Android stuff in general to build it, and then it will ask you to do what it's saying now, where you need uh Android key store file and bundled key store, and those are for like Android uses has its security features, and that's like the cryptographic keys for security. So you need these in your build, and it generates them for you. But also, if you want to update something, you have to have the keys, or when you build it, if you don't and generate new keys, it's technically a new game versus a new version. Which for just an APK isn't really a problem, but for if you're doing Play Store, it would be uh, an issue. But I just did an APK, and I already generated it, and I have Android Studio. I just will show you how it works. I already have it installed on there. It's on the oh, and this it's specifically for API 35. Um, Ren'Py, it's 2004. It's pretty old, so maybe the newest version would work on slightly older APIs, but I'm not quite sure. So here you can see here's the game, and there's options when you're doing it. So you can either pick a portrait, landscape, or user choice, and I did landscape because it's a 16 by 9 game. So if I just one, if it's we love us some Android emulator. There we go. And also sound doesn't work on this, but from what I've like it's glitchy, but that's definitely like a words hard. It's a emulator issue. So here, yeah, here it is. You can see there's like I mentioned a little bit earlier, for all I know that could be 20 minutes earlier. There's no help because you can do it based on version, and then uh, system UI is not responding. I love us some emulator. Okay, there we go. So here you can see this would be a tap drag, and then also I am. Hold on, I don't know if you can hear. Oh my goodness. Trust me, it's not bad on actual phones. It's just horrid on the emulator. And it's not even that bad on the emulator, it's just acting up. I don't know what it is. Last time I did it wasn't this bad. So, I'll go to achievements, and I will click on this, and I'll put them as. See, it doesn't give it to me because it only does that in the developer version. I can return, and then also I think if I just quickly test, yeah, back button is returned as well. And here, oh, now the audio is working perfectly. See, it's John emulator just doing his thing. But yeah, this is Android is almost the exact same except for what you don't have quick save, quick load, and you don't have that help option, and that's basically it. And quick save, quick load is basically just a save that you can access from there, from basically one time save from there. And I guess and I could see that being like a memory issue for phones, and that's why it's not on there. But yeah, that's basically it. I think 48 minutes is long enough, but I wasn't trying to run up the time. But yeah, that's kind of it feels weird saying that's all I have to say. I went over a few topics, but it was 48 minutes worth of topics. But yeah, this is really fun to do. Android's making a weird noise, and that's the perfect note to end on, if you ask me.